taboo subjects that we talk about in the church, and we use money every day. So open your mind, clarity that God wants for you. So he asked the question, how would Jesus invest? We're breaking the poor man's mentality. The poor man's mentality. How would Jesus invest? We're breaking the poor man's mentality. The poor man's mentality. Yeah.
Well, hello. I am Gayle Gilmore, and welcome to How Would Jesus Invest? My mission each week is to share about that taboo subject and often dirty words in the church: money, prosperity, wealth, so forth and so on. And I am so glad that you are joining me today. Please subscribe to the Gem Nugget channel, like it, give me some thumbs up, share it with somebody, comment, even utilize our super chat. That helps us too on this channel. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers, and we just want to go up and beyond. Again, I thank you for joining me today, because you know what? This is the weekend, y'all. This is the weekend. Everybody trying to get that shopping done. So I am very grateful for all of you that are tuning in, and those of you, whenever you watch it, thanks to technology. I thank you for joining in, especially on this weekend. And if you are joining me, please let me know that you are watching by typing in the chat. I tell you, I was out yesterday. I wasn't going to be in all that rush shopping, but I went to one of our big I'll go ahead and say, I'm not really advertising for Sam's Club, but Sam's Club has some really good, delicious pizza for a very good price. And I just ran in there to get a pizza. And I tell you, the line shopping and everything, they were long. And then I found favor because I was standing in the long line for the pizza. And the lady came and said, who's ordering whole pizzas? And I raised my hand so I could get up to the front of the line, pay for my pizza, and it was ready. They cooked it, they do it right there for about 15 minutes. So I thank God for favor yesterday. So I thank you for joining me today, because I know people are shopping. And like I said, this is my favorite time of the year. I just love it. And again, I thank you for joining me on today. I want to let you know that I'm the author of the award-winning book, How Would Jesus Invest? Breaking the Poor Man's Mentality. I'm so proud of this. It won the 2011 Christian Choice Book Award back in 2011 in the area of finance, because I contend that like Hosea 4:6, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, especially in the area of finances, although there's more in the Bible about finances than any other subject in the Bible. And also, I have authored 4 books. You can see right there. It Can't Be Boring, a Christian youth program for difficult times, Miracles of the Exchange, Intentional Blessings, Only by the Grace of God, the story of Sharon Dixon, of course, How Would Jesus Invest? And you may order any of my books from GraceEntwineMinistries.com. The prices and everything is there. And so you are welcome to purchase those books. You will be glad you did. I also want to let you know that I've been married to this handsome young man for 41 years. This is my husband, founding pastor of Grace Entwine Ministries, and I serve as co-pastor, and we are located in Portsmouth, Virginia. If you're ever in the Tidewater area or Hampton Roads area, whatever we call it now, come and visit us at Grace Entwine Ministries. The Gym, we call ourselves the Gym. We're located at 3923 Deep Creek Boulevard in the city of Portsmouth. And you can worship with us every Sunday at 10 a.m. We've been celebrating, we call it Christmas, all month long. And yours truly is about to bring the message on this coming Sunday. Want to let you know, Grace and Twine Ministries, we are a 501c organization. And if you ever want to be a blessing to this ministry, you can always donate at our Cash App, Gem Gifts, or you can go to our website, graceandtwineministries.com. You can make a one-time donation or monthly donations. You can set it up that way. And, you know, being a 501c organization, your donation is tax deductible. And also, when you go to the website, you will get so much information about our ministry, about Pastor and I, about our church, our calendar of events, and everything else. So, again, I thank you for joining me on today. Well, we are going to continue this week. Last week, I started talking about the 7 money lessons from Jacob's son Joseph. I'm just going to review the first 3. If you want to go back and see that, we briefly went over um, Joseph's story. His story starts in the 37th chapter of Genesis and goes all the way to the 50th chapter of Genesis. But the verse, we went over his early childhood. You know, his father made a mistake and let everybody know that he was his favorite child, gave him a coat of many colors. And that's when the thing just started rolling. And the brothers was jealous. They threw him in a pit. And then people came by, they pulled him out the pit, they sold him, and he was in Egypt and he was in jail. And in one chapter, we talked about in one chapter, Joseph went from the prison to being second in line to the Pharaoh, like being an inmate today and then being Vice President Kamala Harris, in one chapter. But it's a fascinating story. There's many lessons that we can learn from this story. Now, on last week, I just want to briefly go over the first 3. And like I said before, if you want to go back to last week's How Would Jesus Invest, you can certainly do that. The first one was dependence on God. You have to rely on God for everything. Joseph, even in the situation that he was in, even when he was getting ready to elevate to be second in line, he had to rely on God to help him reveal those dreams, help him to come up with this plan and so forth for the famine and so forth. And so you have to rely on God. The next one was accounting. You have to know the facts. When Joseph sat down and said, what we're going to do through these 7 months of plenty and 7 months of 7 years, 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. He had to know the facts. He did some accounting. He did some budgeting. Sometimes we don't like that word budgeting. And then the third one we went over was saving, preparing for the future. They could not spend everything while they had the plenty. And so they had to prepare because, like we said, everybody's going to go through some type of famine financially. They're going to go through it. And, it could be anything. It could be health. You could lose your job. It could be a natural disaster. It could be any type of thing. So Joseph was taught us some lessons. So today we're going to move on to number 4. Number 4 is contentment. Be wise with debt. Now, what does that mean? When we're talking about being content, because a lot of times there was one of the dear ladies in my church that I grew up in. Her name was Pastor Griffin. And one of her sayings was, want doesn't know what it wants. And I always thought about that because when we think about debt, when we're in debt, someone has said that debt robs you of contentment and joy, and lack of contentment drives you to more debt. Think about that. Debt robs you of contentment and joy, and lack of contentment drives you to more debt. Well, one of the things we can think of right away is to try to avoid getting into a lot of debt. So as we look here, and let me see, I had some statistics here when we talk about the debt. We need to, now it's not saying that we should be completely happy, but the statistics say that 50% of Americans worry or are fearful about money. One of the main reasons is excessive debt. And see, we need to establish priorities. We really need to know the difference between needs and wants, and live with contentment, not more debt, but live with what we have. No one can have everything. So we need to set some priorities, because a lot of people think that they have to keep up with the Joneses, although they might not know that the Joneses, they going through some things too, because we live in this culture. It's on instant gratification, buy now, pay later, and that mindset is not biblical. It's not biblical, because Proverbs 22:7 says the borrower is servant to the lender. So when we borrow, we are obligated to pay it back. And if you're a person of integrity, it bothers you when you don't pay your debts. You can't be content. Now, I know some people, they just make it a habit not to pay anything. But what happens when they try to buy things like a house or a major purchase, because they have not honored those debts in the past? Nobody's not going to trust them to get things like mortgages and things like that. And so there are some other scriptures that tells us some more things about being content and being wise with debt. Proverbs 21:17. It says, indulging in luxuries, wine, and rich food will never make you wealthy. Hebrews 13:5. Be content with what you have. Some people are so worried about what they don't have, they don't enjoy what they do have. You know what I'm saying? And that's why Paul said in Philippians 4:11-12, I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, either well-fed, hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. And Paul certainly did, because he was at both ends of the spectrum. And the last one I want to share with you is 1 Timothy 6:6. Godliness with contentment is great gain. It's nothing like being content. But let's go back to what I said earlier, because what you want to do is you want to really avoid the debt before it gets to that point that you are not content. I need to show this one more time. I like this. Debt robs you of contentment and joy, and the lack of contentment drives you to more debt. That is an interesting statement, but I know exactly, you know exactly what that means. So we're going to move on to number 5, lessons from Jacob's son, Joseph. And number 5, budgeting. I know people don't like that word, but budgeting is biblical. It is biblical. Now, when we think about Joseph, and if you look at Genesis 41 and look at verses 39-44, Joseph put together a budget, And what it did, it stipulated they would only spend 80% of their income. Budgeting is biblical. Proverbs 21:5 says, plan carefully and you will have plenty. If you act too quickly, you will never have enough. And somebody put this translation for 2120. I don't think the word is stupid, but what it says here, stupid people spend their money as fast as they get it. But that is true. That is true. I'm going to look at the King James Version. You know, they say you shouldn't call people stupid, but I wanted to see what it says actually in the King James Version, because we have to have goals with our givings. I got to find this because when I read this in my notes here, I'm like, why did they say it like that? But let me tell you what the King James Version, but this translation just broke it down. But Proverbs 21:10 says, the soul of the wicked desires evil. His neighbor findeth no favor in his eyes. But this translation here says stupid people spend their money, and that is true. There are some people, I don't want to call them stupid, but not wise, not wise. They spend it as soon as they get it. You know, you hear people say, I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow, so I'm just going to spend it, as, tomorrow's not promised, and all that type of thing. That's not wise, y'all. That's not wise. So, budgeting and spending intelligently. Like I said before, we should um, we should plan carefully, as it says in Proverbs 21 5. And this is a suggested order. This is a suggested order. Number one, pay God first. Number two, save second. And number three, live on the rest. I know there, as I do the research and looking through what different models say, well, we know the 10%, that's always 10%. Then you have models that say 60, 10, 10, and 10. 60% living expenses, 10% tithe, 10% saving, 10%. Oh, this one says extra debt reduction or savings. And then another 10% extra giving. I know some people don't even want to get 10%. I know they ain't going to get the extra giving. But anyway, so now for me, I see the 10%, and then for the tithe, and then the living expenses, and then the savings, however that works out there. But you have to have a system. You have to have some order, and so we need to budget and we need to spend intelligently, and we need to spend intentionally. Like I said, whatever your goal is, but you should pay God first. Not that He needs it, we've always said that, but that we are obedient to what He says. And guess what? He's going to bless us. He's really going to bless us. So let's move on to number six. Joseph followed this and everything he did, even setting up this budget for Egypt. Like I said, the 80% only spend 80% of their income, the 10% to God. Now, he was in a pagan place. They didn't believe in all this. This was Egypt. But Pharaoh followed his advice, and the whole country of Egypt was blessed. Oh my goodness. They sold everybody that came to them during the famine. So I want to move on to number six. Number six is hard work. Be industrious. One thing we know about Joseph was a mover and shaker. He was incredibly industrious. At age 30, he was in charge of Egypt. Now that wasn't a weak assignment to be in charge of. He was in charge of the finances, everything. Second in line to the Pharaoh. And here it is, as second in command to Pharaoh and the person in charge of crisis economics, he had to hustle to cover all the bases. He built newer and bigger bonds, meeting the needs of the people. He was a busy man, to be sure. See, that's the thing. We need to work hard, and then there's some scriptures that back this up. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord and not for men. Whatever you do it well, do it with excellence. My mom had the saying, be the task big or small, do it well or none at all. And Joseph did it well. Even when he was getting ready to go and tell the Pharaoh the meaning of his dream, you know what he did first? He shaved, he changed his clothes, he presented himself where he was ready to go to work. And so we need to do that. We need to follow that example of Joseph. You know, one of my favorite quotes is from Dr. Martin Luther King. And it says, if it falls your lot to be a street sweeper, go out and sweep streets like Michelangelo painted pictures. Sweep streets like Handel and Beethoven composed music. Sweep streets like Shakespeare wrote poetry. Sweep streets, say that fast a lot of times, so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will have to pause and say, here lived a great street sweeper who swept his job well. And see, that's the thing. We are living in a society now that we just don't want to do things with excellence. I don't care what it is. We need to do it, and we need to do it as we're doing it unto God. Don't you want to do your best unto the Lord? And that's how we should do, even in our everyday occupations and in our work. Hard work. We need to be industrious. We need to work, and we need to do our jobs well. There are some other scriptures that I want to share. It says, lazy hands make a man poor, but diligent hands bring wealth. That's Proverbs 10:4. Proverbs, make hay while the sun shines. That's smart. Go fishing during the harvest. That's stupid. Now, I think about the ant. I talked about that last week. The ant, I don't see no ants now. It's cold. They've done their work. They're eating and they're good. And so we need to do what we can. That's what Joseph did. While they had plenty, they stored it up. They put it in the barns. They put it and stored it up. So when the famine came, they were good. Proverbs 13:4. I don't know what this translation is from these notes, but it says Proverbs 13:4. Lazy people want much but get little. Oh my goodness. But those who work hard will prosper and be satisfied. That's some good words. If you didn't catch all that, you can always go back and pick up on those. See, that work is good. Work is good. Don't let nobody tell you that work is not good. It is an my husband sometimes, when he would have to work overtime, he said, more work, more worship. And this my notes is right here. Work is good. It's an expression of our worship and gratitude to God for health and strength. Did you hear that? It's an opportunity for us to be a blessing and make a difference. So work hard and be industrious, just like Joseph. Oh my goodness, that's good right there. And so the last one is giving. Here we go again. It always comes back to this thing about honoring God first. One thing about Joseph honored God with the resources that were placed in his care. This is called being a good steward of God's finances that he gives you. You're not a good steward when you don't waste it, when you don't give back to him and so forth. The Bible tells us we are to be good stewards. God wants us to be fruitful. We are to honor God with our resources the same way Joseph did. Joseph took care of the people which honored God. Joseph blessed God's work. What do we call that? We call that tithing. Giving is an expression of worship, and it's an expression of the heart. This is a quote from Warren Buffett. Money is not the root of all evil. Money reveals your inner character. Where you are a jerk before money, you will be a bigger one with money. Where you are a kind person before money, you'll be kinder one with money. Money doesn't make you, it exposes you. How you deal with money speaks to the matter of the heart. That's good. And that's from Warren Buffett. So we have several scriptures that tell us about giving and honoring God first. Proverbs 3:9-10. Honor the Lord by giving him the first part of all your income, and he will fill your barns to overflow. And that's where we get the first fruit giving. Um, the other thing given first is the tenth, which we know from Malachi, which we've gone over and over again. Malachi, to bring the tenth to the storehouse, that my storehouse will be filled, and watch me and see if I won't open the windows of heaven and give you pour you out a blessing that you won't be able to receive. And I'll even take care of the 90%. Oh my goodness, I'll keep the devourer off of the 90%. Amen. And so because remember back in my earlier lessons, we had the acronym DEBT. Doing everything but tithing or doing everything before tithing, you will be in debt. I'm just saying it. I believe it because what happens, and I've seen it happen, and people say, well, I can't give God. Well, he'll find a way that you might have to use it for something that comes. The refrigerator breaks down, somebody gets sick, not wishing anything, but this is, see, he'll keep the devourer off of the rest when you obey him with the first. He said, just test me on this and see if I won't pour you out a blessing that you won't be able to have room to receive. And of course, the offering. Luke 6:38 says, give, and it shall be given to you, good measure, shaken together, pouring over, that men will give unto your bosom. I tell you, Numbers tells us he's not a man that he would lie. So this is true. I remember the lesson that my husband did about the Bible not just being a book of religion, which is not a book of religion, and he went over the 7 P's. And one of the P's is promises. That whatever he says, it's a promise. And see, when you do it, um, Pastor Nye is not responsible for blessing you. God will bless you if you do it. If you bless the ministry and you bless the things of God, God is going to do it. That ain't on us. The burden of proof is not on us, but it's on God. And I'm going to tell you, you can trust God every single time because he does not go back on his promises. So that ends the 7 lessons, the 7 money lessons that we get from Jacob's son Joseph. And so I want to end this up. There's a question. There's a way to give as well as what we give. So how should we give? Because I think if we look at how the attitude that we have in giving, we would give like we should. So we should give generously. 2 Corinthians 9:6 says, whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Okay, we should give generously. We should give purposefully. 2 Corinthians 9:7. Each man should give what he has decided in his heart to give. You should purposefully want to give to the Lord. You should have that purpose to do that. You should give personally. 1 Corinthians 16:2. Each one of you should set aside a sum of money. That's similar to 2 Corinthians 9:7. You should give systematically. 1 Corinthians 16:2. On the first day of every week, or when you get that income and God blesses you with that income, because if you hold off on it, something is going to come up and going to take it. So do it. Have a system. The system that we have, the first check that is written is the tithe. The first check that is written is the tithe first. Okay. And then regularly, we should give regularly. The church has to pay the mortgage regularly and pay the bills regularly. So we need to have people to give regularly. Okay. So 1 Corinthians 16:2, on the first day of the week or whatever it is, regularly, proportionately, meaning in keeping with your income. And that's again 1 Corinthians 16:2. And sacrificially, they gave as much as they were able and even beyond their ability. That's 2 Corinthians 8:3. Reminds me of Jesus when he saw the widow and she put her mite in, and he told everybody else, he says, she has given all that she has. That was a sacrificial blessing. It wasn't the amount, but it was that she was willing to give it sacrificially. All right. So, and I got to end with this last one. And I'm going to end. And also, he loves a cheerful giver. That is 2 Corinthians 9:7. And I'm going to leave you, but I've got to show this video one more time because it makes us smile every time when it talks about being a cheerful giver. One more time in 2023. I love it. I love it. I had to end on that one for how would Jesus invest? Because he wants us to be a cheerful giver. But that's all I have for today. The 7 lessons. The 7 lessons of Joseph, the son of Jacob, not talking about the husband of Mary, although we are in the holiday season, but we're talking about Joseph. And again, I just thank you so much. We are getting ready to celebrate, as we said before, but I thank you for joining me on this journey, the 7 money lessons from Jacob's son. And if you have, when you get a chance, go and read Genesis Joseph's entire story from chapters 37 to chapter 50. Fascinating story. And he has so many money and financial lessons in that story. But until next time, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas, and I will see you next Saturday on How Would Jesus Invest? Bye-bye.
It seems like money is a taboo subject that we talk about in the church, and we use money every day. So open your mind that God wants for you. So he asked the question, how would Jesus invest? We're breaking the poor man's mentality. The poor man's mentality. How would Jesus invest? We're breaking the poor man's